podcast,
Uh-huh.
and it's really. I tell you what, you wrote all these, right? You composed all these.
I did, yeah.
You composed all this. So let's give a quick journey on and let the audience know what they're to expect. Say like from Monsoon Blues, which is strictly a blues, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much a blues in form, a little bit of an extended blues form. Very funky, it's got kind of like a James Brown meets Tower of Power kind of feeling.
Right.
I like to, or at least I like to imagine that. But then it kind of goes into this South Indian, we've got this great South Indian percussionist named Sridhar Parthasarthi playing. We recorded the tracks here, and then I went over to Bombay during the monsoon in the summer when it was torrential rain, and got him to overdub these different South Indian instruments, the mridangam, which is a two-headed drum, and jira, which looks like a small tambourine, but has an incredibly deep and complex sound. And then guttam, which is a clay pot that they play in South India, and morsing, which is a Jew's harp or a
Right.
So he did all that as well as vocal percussion in duet with what Steve Smith was doing. So we incorporate these, mainly the rhythmic techniques of South India in that piece. You don't hear so much of the essence of raga or the kind of modal approach to Indian music. So it feels a lot like Western music, but with some exotica. And it's a fun piece. It's very,
it is.
Technically quite exciting.
I enjoyed it. Spice.
Then Spice is quite complex, and it features Kala Ramnath on violin, a fantastic Indian violinist, and Niladri Kumar, who I mentioned earlier, on sitar, and Swapan Chaudhary plays tabla on that. That's a little complicated because it's a bunch of 11. It's all written in an 11-beat time cycle. It's challenging for musicians from the West as well as for musicians from India because it's different from what we're used to doing. It stays within kind of a raga-based flavor. It stays quite modal and goes through a number of sections with different expressions of this 11-beat cycle. It's the longest piece. It's a little bit like a suite, and I could even imagine it going on for a lot longer. But
and then we have Silent Prayer.
Silent
Madhuvanti.
Prayer. Madhuvanti is a North Indian raga. It's a fixed scale that's a little unusual for Western ears. It's for those musicians who might be listening, it's like a minor scale, but with a major seventh and a raised fourth. So it's kind of exotically flavored and very appealing to my ears for a jazz musician to play. It's got some strict structure in that it ascends in a different form than it descends. So ragas, these modes, have kind of certain rules that attend to them. And although it's very Indian-based, it doesn't have any Indian musicians on it. It's just the quartet. It's just the guitar, bass, saxophone, and drums. But it's a totally Indian piece expressed through Western instruments.
And Spirit, which was one of my favorites on here.
I kind of agree with you. I love that piece. That is one of those, one take live in the studio. Just very strong playing. Frank Martin.
One take.
Yeah.
Wow.
Frank Martin, and the same was true actually for the piece before this, the Madhuvanti. In fact, it was the last piece of the recording session. We did it once and went like, wow. But Spirit is really cool. It's a 21 beat cycle, which is unusual, which an Indian might hear as 7 groups of 3, or we might hear it as 6 bars of 12/8 and then a half, or 3 bars of 12/8 and a half. There are different ways to view that. Kind of like a 7 or a 21. But it's really inspired a lot by the music of McCoy Tyner. It's got that kind of 3 against 2 African feel underlying this 21 beat pattern. And Frank Martin joins us on piano. He's a great pianist from here in the Bay Area, and it's just a piece that does, for me, have a lot of power, a lot of energy. Just it feels really good and something I'm happy with, and glad that you like it.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Lalita.
Lalita was actually that was kind of inspired by this project. There's a book written by a great Indian author who writes in English. Her name is Chitra Banerjee Devakaruni. She wrote a book called The Mistress of Spices.
Okay.
That's kind of an interesting, kind of like some of the South American novels, kind of this magic realism. It was made into a movie, but I think the book is a much stronger artistic work than the movie. And I was asked, the city of Oakland, which is adjacent to the city of Berkeley where I live, did this one city, one book campaign where they wanted like kind of everybody in the city to read a book and on the same page, literarily speaking, and they chose that book. And we did a concert at Yoshi's Jazz Club here to help promote that campaign and as a benefit for the public library. So I wrote a bunch of pieces inspired by that book, and Lalita was a character in the book, and somebody who suffered domestic abuse, and the book actually takes place in Oakland, California. I guess that's, an Indian woman. It's quite exotic and fascinating. So Lalita is this person who has this domestic abuse in her life, but kind of overcomes her situation. So that was the inspiration for that piece, and there's a little bit of kind of haunting female Indian vocals on the piece, as well as beautiful bamboo flute work of Ronu Majumdar. Hamsika Iyer is a young singer in Bombay who I met during a couple of performances there. Came into the studio in India and did those kind of haunting vocals, which I think add a lot of flavor and mystery to the piece. But other than that, it's kind of Western. I mean, in live performance, it sometimes extends, the middle section extends longer into kind of a raga form, but it does have more of a, Western kind of harmonic.
Right. Cyril Rollins, that's for Sonny Rollins?
Shri Rollins.
Shri Rollins, okay.
Shri, S-R-I, Shri is a term of respect in India.
Oh, okay.
So, and sometimes it's like Shri Shri and Shri Shri Shri, and Sonny gets as many Shris as I can possibly come up with. Shri, it kind of mixes the calypso flavor of Sonny Rollins with, again, these South Indian rhythmic patterns that flavor the music. And Sonny's I just saw Sonny perform here in California he was just shy of 80 and just a powerhouse, an unbelievable